usually within 1 to 24 hours of death, someone whose brain hasn't been functioning, who can't remember the names of their own children, suddenly becomes completely lucid and says, Stephen, darling, come over here. Let's have a nice mother-son chat. And then that gives a lot of people hope, but usually that means it's an hour or 23 hours till the person is going to die.
Nobody really knows me like you do.
Hi, you guys. So today I want to talk about the afterlife and the things that happen when we die. Many people are curious about what happens when they die. Some people are scared, rightfully so, because it's something that is unknown. And some people fear things that they don't really know about. But even as a Christian, we're sometimes curious to how that life is. And these people who we will see will give their account to what happened to them when they went through a life and death situation. Hi, you guys, welcome back. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Cece. I do faith-based and lifestyle content. So please hit that subscribe button. And to all my returning subscribers, thank you so much.
My perspective shifted and I was above myself. And I saw the whole setup of the room, including a woman that was in the corner of the room. She was holding her face like this, and she was really sad that I was dying. And that was initially when I left my body, that was one of the things that disturbed me the most. It was like, what in the world is she sad for? This is so beautiful. This is so perfect. I'm not hurting, no, I'm not confused. That guy is dead, but I'm alive. This is beautiful, you know? So to me, that just clarifies that it's not a hallucination. I learned while I was out of my body. Once I did leave my body and I looked down, there was a lot of things that I came to understand. Like, he's dead, his body's dead, the mind is dead, the ego's dead. And after that kind of series of kind of realizations, it was like, well, then what's left? Like, what am I? You know, and the words flooded in very clearly. It was audible. These words were light, energy, soul, spirit, awareness. It's just a flood of words. They weren't in a line like mechanical. It was like a bunch of voices just said these words. But it felt like it was me explaining this to myself. Everything was energy. Everything felt like love. And I felt like a part of that whole thing.
I've heard many people say that when they went through a near-death experience, all they felt was love, a bunch of love. They just couldn't explain it. They couldn't describe it. It was just so much of love they felt. Even hospice nurses and doctors have said that people were talking to their dead loved ones. Family members who have witnessed their family dying said that their parents or someone in their family, they were talking to someone who have passed over and they wanted to go with them. There have been witnesses of people dying. People have said that when their loved ones were dying, they were talking to people. They were talking to people that weren't there, trying to guide them to the other side. And many things like this have been spoken around the world, that it just cannot be a coincidence. It cannot be a hallucination that so many people would like to believe because they don't want to admit that there is a God after this. There is a place that we live in eternity. So they say, oh, that person is hallucinating. Oh, it's the drugs. But for all of these accounts, no, it cannot be a coincidence. This has to be real.
I thought, man, it's freezing in here, but I'm still 104 fever. I looked to my right, and out of nowhere, Jesus is standing there. The physical person, and everything else just kind of disappeared. His skin was much darker than I'd seen as a kid. He almost looked like an Arab man. He was wearing a white robe. He had like wavy brown hair, and he had these dark greenish blue eyes. And when those eyes looked into my eyes, he looked into my soul. I could just feel this love emanating from this man. That was what convinced me that it was Jesus. He holds out his hand and he says, I want to answer your prayer. And I'm thinking, my prayer? What the heck? I didn't make the connection right away, but I thought, I used to pray as a kid that Jesus would show me heaven. I reached out, I took his hand. Immediately, when I took his hand, we were standing on a hill. Everything around me is white, like the whitest white I've ever seen. And all of a sudden, out of that light, it starts sending these light beams. They look like fluorescent light tubes, like you use in your shop, the 4-foot things. And I'm watching these things, and one of them is coming straight at my head. It hits me right in the forehead, and it warmed me, like all the way down to my feet. And now I'm looking at this beautiful scenery. I see that I am standing on a hill. Below me are these little flowers. They're purples and yellows and orange. And then at the bottom of this hill, there's a great big city down there. But I can only see the rooftops because it's like there's fog on top of the city. So I can't see the whole city, but I can just see the rooftops. And there's one real big gold dome, like a Capitol dome. And there's other smaller gold domes. I mean, the city's huge. It's like miles apart. I'm just looking at it, just going, this is amazing. And when I look back at the light, Jesus says to me, it's the glory of the Lord. And when he said that, I just got weak in my knees. And I fell to my knees. And the instant my knees hit the ground, they shocked me and they brought me back.
And some people say that when they were brought back, they didn't want to come back. It was so much love they felt there that they did not want to return on earth. And sometimes we have this vision of what we think God looks like. But let me tell you, God does not look like any of those pictures that we've seen. So we need to get that out of our minds, and we just need to focus on God's love, spiritual love of who God is.
Usually, within 1 to 24 hours of death, someone whose brain hasn't been functioning, who can't remember the names of their own children, suddenly becomes completely lucid and says, Stephen, darling, come over here. Let's have a nice mother-son chat. And then that gives a lot of people hope, but usually that means it's an hour or 23 hours till the person's going to die. We can't explain that. How can a brain that's irreversibly damaged suddenly function completely normally? There is no explanation for that. With the near-death experiences, I was particularly compelled by 3 stories. Dr. Mary Neal, an orthopedic surgeon, she's in that Netflix documentary, Surviving Death. She was submerged underwater for 15 or 20 minutes. She should never have been able to be resuscitated. She describes her whole journey of going to another realm, seeing, a being of light, being told that her life isn't over. She has to turn back and return to the physical world, even though she could see her bloated body and her friends trying to reach her to resuscitate her, and they couldn't. Dr. Eben Alexander, who wrote Proof of Heaven, he is a doctor. He was an atheist. He was in a coma with bacterial meningitis and was pronounced clinically dead, and then basically came back and said that he saw heaven, and he now believes in a God that is benign, that cares about the future of humanity. So for me as a doctor, hearing these stories from other doctors was really, really convincing. And then there's one story that Dr. Bruce Grayson told me. He's a professor of psychiatry at University of Virginia who has done 50 years of research into near-death experiences. And he told me the story of a patient in ICU who kept going into cardiac arrest. And he had a primary nurse who was a young 20-year-old nurse, and they had a really close bond. And one weekend, she had time off for the weekend, and he had a different nurse looking after him. And he went into cardiac arrest, and he had a near-death experience. And in that near-death experience, he saw his primary nurse She said to him, "Your life isn't over. You have to go back and get better. And please tell my parents I'm sorry about the red MG." So he wakes up in ICU. He's got this replacement nurse looking after him. And he says, the strangest thing just happened. I had this experience of being in this other world. I saw my primary nurse, and she said I had to come back. And she also said, tell my parents sorry about the red MG. So the temporary nurse bursts into tears, runs out of the room. He has no idea why. Someone comes in and says, what's just happened? He explains, and they tell him that his primary nurse was given a red MG for her 21st birthday, took it out for a test run, crashed it into a tree, and died. Now, he didn't know she was dead, but he saw her on the other side and she told him to come back.
And the guy that told you the story was who, relevant to the patient? Who said that?
Dr. Bruce Grayson. He has done 50 years of research on near-death experiences. He's got over 5,000 recorded cases of patients of his own that he's looked after that have had near-death experiences. And he also shared with me the numbers of cases that other people have on databases. So, you know, we're looking at over 10,000 cases globally recorded at the moment.
What is it that you believe, based on those near-death experiences, like the red MG story, and based on this phenomenon of terminal lucidity?
So Professor Alexander Bathiani, who wrote Threshold about terminal lucidity, put it really nicely when he said, maybe at the border of life and death, we see something that is true all along, but we don't, for whatever reason, see it or acknowledge it whilst we're alive and well, which is that the mind and body can operate independently of each other.
It is quite shocking. There's this case from 2009, an 82-year-old woman with Alzheimer's disease who was nonverbal and non-responsive and had no apparent recognition of her surroundings or families for years. And then one day before her death, she suddenly sat up in hospital, looked around and recognized her daughter by name, spoke clearly, reminisced about the past, thanked her family for caring for her. Her speech was coherent, her memory was intact, and her personality recognizable, as though she had never been ill. She fell asleep that evening and died peacefully during the night. And what do you think's happening there? What do you think's happening there?
It's possibly, you know, partially explained by a surge in neurochemicals, but it's not explained by how can those neurochemicals act if the physical neurons and synapses are damaged. There is no explanation. The only explanation is that the mind is not emergent from material matter. It's not the mind, the thoughts, the emotions, the psyche cannot be solely emerging from physical matter. That's the only explanation from what we understand so far.
And so what is it that you now believe? You believe that our souls and our bodies are two separate things. And where does our soul live if it's not living inside of me? So like, where is Robin?
So I believe that, you know, whether you want to call it the universe, consciousness, collective consciousness, Godhead, cosmic soup, the word for it isn't important. There's somewhere that energy goes and it still exists in some form. And if you believe in reincarnation, then you may believe that it then enters another body as a vessel and, you know, has a different life. But it doesn't go away.
People are trying to find explanations for why these people are saying that they seen God or they seen their dead loved ones. Oh, it must be some type of neurochemical imbalance, or it must be that they are hallucinating, or it got to be something else. But no, they didn't see another world. They didn't see people that died. No, it's all in their head. No. Our souls live forever. And I believe, and I truly know, that that soul can live with God, or it can live with Satan. It's up to us to do what we have to do to make sure our souls are saved and will be living in eternity with God.
Jeremy Renner is an actor. He had a near-death experience. He was run over by his snowplow, and he was clinically dead.
You describe a part of your experience like this: I could see my lifetime. I could see everything all at once. It could have been for 10 seconds. It could have been for 5 minutes. It could have been forever. Who knows how long? In that death, there was no time at all, yet it was also all time and forever. What were you seeing? And more importantly, what were you feeling?
It's kind of none of those things. It's just that the word is. You just are or is. It's all, everything, all at once, all encompassed. There is no time, place, or space. It just is. It's the most exhilarating peace. It just is. And you're there. It's just, these words are so like caveman-like that I'm saying, but that's just the way it is. It's not even like a conscious thought thing. It's not, you're removed of the burdens of your earthly measures of like gravity and tooth decay and all these type of things, right? You're relieved of those duties of that on the spinning rock. You're out into this, it's to me, it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful space. And really, really quite tragic that I had to come back into a busted body.
Well, we're glad you did, because we
I'm like, oh, there's my eyeball, my twisted legs. I'm like, oh, why'd I come back?
You see what I'm saying? Many people don't want to come back. Many people, after they have witnessed what eternity of love looks like, they don't want to come back to this world. And it gives you so much peace to know where your loved ones are, that this is not the end. This life here, no. It is not over after this life. There's a place that's so great that people don't want to leave it. They wish that they died and stayed there. That's how much love that you would have. But you need to be saved and know God truly if you want to live with Him in eternal peace.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's pretty amazing. To me, it's what I would define, God to be, or it's just it was the divinity of the collective of love in the human experience.
Did you have any spiritual beliefs before? Did you have any?
Yeah, well, my dad was a theologist, so I studied all religions growing up.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a part of any of those religions.
Yeah.
I became educated to them all and the studying of them all, even Eastern philosophies. And I think they're all very fascinating and interesting. It just, for me personally, I wasn't going down any of those paths for me. But I certainly have a definition of God in all religions now. It's not some bearded man in the sky. It's not this. It's not this. It's, to me, it is this collective divinity of love. Love is the only thing that you take with you when you die.
And this is not an uncommon thing for near-death experiencers to say, that they didn't want to come back because it was so good over there. It was so peaceful, so loving, so much better than what we could possibly imagine here, that coming back is like, really? So that's another area that can be comforting for people. If you fear death, if you are grieving the loss of a loved one, just evidence that could support that there is something more after this, and that the other side is beautiful, and that it is love, and that it is peaceful, and it's something to look forward to, not to hasten, but something to look forward to.
I remember when my mom told me about my grandmother's death. She told me that in her moments of dying, she saw her sister that died, my grandmother's sister. And she would tell her, do you see her sitting in that chair? Why you didn't say hey to her? Why you didn't say hey to her? And my mom didn't know, really, she was kind of stunned. She would tell me that my grandmother would talk to her dead sister like she was there. And they would have a conversation. And it really does bring comfort to know when your loved one has died that they are at peace, that they are with God, and they really don't want to come back because they're in such a beautiful place. They're in such a lovely place, that so much that we can try to imagine it with our minds, but we still won't know until we see it for ourselves. So this next one is about this man who was an atheist, and he experienced a near-death experience. And he saw God.
My first thought was that I'd been shot because it was like right there, bang, this is the most acute pain I'd ever experienced in my life. Went to the hospital, we went to emergency. 2 doctors examined me, said the same thing that the doctor at the hotel said. I had a perforation of the duodenum, and that if I didn't have surgery right away, I would die. But I didn't want to die because I knew with 100% certainty that when you die, that's it. It's over. The screen goes black, like in the movie theater, you know. It says the end, blackness, nothing. I was 38 years old. I had a wife, I had 2 kids, I had a good job, I had a career, I had art galleries showing my work, I was winning prizes, you know, I was making money. This is not right. This is not time for me to die. I awoke from unconsciousness, and I was standing next to the bed, and I felt wonderful, better than I ever felt my whole life. And I noticed that the big dead lump in the bed was me. But I couldn't accept that because it's not, I mean, that's impossible. Then I heard people outside the room calling me by name in English, which I thought was weird because everybody in the French hospital spoke French. And they said, hurry up, we've been waiting for you. We know everything. We've been waiting and waiting, and it's time for you to come with us. So I assumed, since I had mentioned the doctor, that they were going to take me to the doctor. So I left the light of the room and went out into the very gray, dank hallway where there was this group of people that stayed back in the darkness, away from the light of the room. And they led me what at first I thought was the hallway, but then we walked for miles and miles and miles, and we never went up or down. They encircled me and just shepherded me into ever-increasing darkness. It started off with them being very officious, like this way, keep moving, hurry up. That evolved into, what's the matter with you? Move faster, you're too slow. That became vulgar, and then it became clear that they were going to have at me. They began by kicking, punching, pulling. Then they started biting and ripping and tearing, and then they started invading me physically. So eventually I was completely torn apart, lying on the ground, unable to even move or defend myself in any way. I'm completely defeated, completely depressed and despair, and I couldn't think of any way out. This is it, forever and ever and ever, with these horrible people. And I heard a voice say, pray to God, and I thought, I don't believe in God, I don't pray. And the voice said, pray to God, kind of strong. And I thought, I don't know how to pray, I can't pray. And the voice said, pray to God. Like, my mind went involuntarily to me as a little boy in a Sunday school classroom singing Jesus Loves Me. I could see it vividly, I could hear it vividly, but much more importantly, I could feel it vividly. That as a little boy, when I sang Jesus Loved Me, I believed that there was this really cool guy named Jesus, and lions and tigers and bears would come out of the closet and, and start swarming around my bedroom in the middle of the night. You know, I would pray to Jesus and they would all flee. And I believed in him as a little boy. That's why when I was 12, I wanted to get baptized, because I wanted to know him. And I called out to him, Jesus, please save me. And with that, a tiny light appeared in the darkness and got very bright. And it came upon me. It was impossibly brilliant. If it had been light as we experience light in this world, it would have consumed me. I mean, I just would have been burnt up, but it was that bright. Out of it emerged hands and arms. And he reached down and touched me, and I saw myself come back together from the roadkill that I was. You know, I became complete. And much more important to me was that he filled me with a love that I've never experienced in this world. And his hands and arms picked me up without any effort. And he brought me up against himself and put his arms around me and began to stroke my back like a mother or father would with their child. And I cried out of joy into his chest, slobbering all over him. The people who took me into that place of darkness were people just like me. They were people who had rejected God, rejected God's love, and God gave them exactly what they wanted. I don't believe God punishes anybody. I believe God gives everybody exactly what they want. The Bible says, humans judge by appearances, God judges by the heart. And if we seek God and seek God's love, we will find it in this world and in the next. And if we reject God and reject God's love, we get to go to a world where those things don't happen. And I don't mean this as a joke. I mean this absolutely sincerely. Hell's not so bad. The problem is the people that are there. They're awful. They're really awful.
That was a wake-up call to him and to anyone who's listening. If you are unsure about Jesus, this is your time to get it right. As long as you have air in your body and you're breathing, please, if you're not saved, please get saved. Please seek God, because he loves you.
God, you call me by my name. The love you give me, I just can't deny.